This is Sarah Meixel with the Pig Site, and today we're here with Dr. Jeroen Degroote. He is a swine nutritionist at Ghent University and has worked at the university for 10 years. His research focuses on gut health in weaned piglets, and he's shifting his research over to focus more on precision feeding applications. Thanks for being with us today, Jeroen.
For having me. Thanks for the invitation.
Very good. Let's talk today a little bit about hyperprolific sows. And what we want to think about is kind of what are some of the challenges that piglets born from hyperprolific sows will face throughout their development?
Well, I think we still face a little bit similar problems as we are facing for the past decade, and that's that these piglets have a lower birth weight, of course. That's the first problem. And the second problem is that due to the large litter size, there's a much higher competition at the udder for milk. And both disadvantages play out in a lower milk production for the sow, or a lower milk production per piglet. So they have to deal with that and try to survive.
Very good. And what are some of the ways to kind of mitigate these challenges that the piglets are facing from these large litters?
As a piglet, you strive to survive, of course. As a farmer, you can try to help mitigate this. And there are several points in time during the production phase where you can take action. You cannot do all your action on one time point, and actually you should shift your focus throughout the production stage on different focus points. And we usually typically call this a push-pull strategy, where you focus on the sow during gestation, trying to improve other developments through nutrition. Later on, you go through the partus of your sow, and you focus on getting a lot of live-born piglets with good vitality. Later on, you focus again on the sow to have a good startup of the milk production, and you shift again your attention to the piglets. So again, shifting your focus at good time points from sow to piglets is actually a good strategy to mitigate this and to increase milk production in the sow. We like to think of it in this kind of a concept when we talk to farmers.
Very good. And what would be your advice to swine businesses on how to produce these healthy performing piglets from hyperprolific sows? What are some things that they can do?
Well, it's very hard to increase milk production on a farm as such with big nutritional changes. Most of the time, nutrition should be okay, but as a manager, as a farm manager, there are smaller points of attention that you can raise. And for example, a very critical point for milk production is the birth weight of piglets. And mainly for gilts, this is still a very important point where farmers could address more attention to monitoring birth weight of piglets, particularly in gilts. Another focus point would then be to focus again on the sow and strive to good, adequate feed intake throughout the day of farrowing, because we know that energy is very much needed for farrowing. So we want to have we want to spread meals across the day. Later on, during the farrowing process, you want to increase udder access as much as possible to have the piglets reaching the udder as maximum as possible to activate all the other compartments. In that stage, you would like to reduce teat competition as fast as possible. So cross-fostering strategy there is quite important to increase milk production. And then again, shifting towards the attention to the sow later on during lactation, I guess we still need to focus on heat stress and still need to focus on the design of the barn to reduce heat stress for sows and to increase, of course, the climate for the piglets. So these are quite critical points. And then again, in the end, all of this should pay off in an increased milk production. Farmers should monitor this, for example, through scoring udder quality and taking this into account for selection, selecting the good sows for the next parity, because I have the impression that when we are selecting sows in our farm, we are still focusing on litter size and number of wheat piglets, but there's not a lot of focus on udder quality. And this is the main point that we need to increase in our farm, is udder quality. This is the problem we are dealing with in high prolific sows milk production.
Very good. One of the things that you mentioned was heat stress for sows. And that's an interesting, just an interesting idea, that you're trying to keep the piglets warm and dry. But is that a balancing act between keeping the sow comfortable and keeping the piglets comfortable and making sure they're progressing?
Yeah, it's indeed an interplay between piglet and sow, but I guess in the near future we will need to shift towards more modern barn designs, go away from traditional barn designs. So I would advise every farmer building a new barn to really consider heat stress as a big problem for milk production and try to optimize his barn design. I think in Europe we are actually shifting to bigger piglet nesting areas that are covered, that are heated, and that can help to reduce the stable temperature. And so the temperature for the sow, we would like to reduce it with 2 to 3 degrees without impacting on the piglets. So I think this is a major point of attention in Europe nowadays. Yeah. I guess heat stress in the United States is even more important.
Yeah, it's just it's a topic I certainly hear as an editor. I certainly hear a lot of trying to create that balance between what the sow needs for production and what the piglets need for, to keep them comfortable and growing and get them off to a good start, especially early on. So
yeah. A lot of nutrition is focusing on having very high levels of feed intake into the sow with quite high level of quality of the diet. But we often forget that actually with just a 1 degree change in ambient temperature in the barn, we could already increase feed intake very good. So we are doing a lot of nutritional research to have adequate feed intake, but actually heat stress is as even important. So barn design in the future will be, again, more important.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That all those, we put a lot of effort into nutrition and making sure we're feeding them the right things, but it's sometimes those environmental things that are going on around that can have such a big effect and such a big impact, right?
Yeah, that's indeed the case.
Very good. Well, hey, thank you so much for all the information today, Jeroen. We appreciate it.
It was a joy to talk to you, Sarah, and let's meet again.
Very good. I appreciate that. This is Sarah Meixel with the Pig Site.